Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Kayla Cato, and I'm from the Office of Student Development and Leadership here at Queens College. We just want to take this time to thank you so much for joining us for this afternoon's program. In just a few moments, you will meet both Danielle and Jessica Alejandro, who reached out to us wanting to create a safe space for those who have been traumatized or affected or tragically affected by COVID 19. They told us how they have a partnership with Project Hope, and Project Hope is an organization that provides information, education, educational resources, support, and resources for those who have been affected. So, without further ado, I just want to introduce to you Danielle and Jessica Alejandro.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica,
My name is Danielle.
and we're both Queens College students who lost our papa, our grandfather, from COVID 19 on March 8th, 2021.
So we lost our papa March 8th, 2021, and I believe this COVID death is unlike any other death or experience I believe someone can go through. It was really important that we brought this to the campus's attention, and we tried to do something for other students. Um, so I believe that the most hard thing that we went through with this death was there was not many resources for us, and also at the time we didn't really know even where to go. We had amazing support system from family, friends, but it wasn't the same talking to people that didn't know the pain we were feeling. And it was really important to us that we tried to bring this system to other people.
When we lost our papa, everything happened fairly quickly, from date of diagnosis to his passing. We were in the middle of, well, the end of the semester. So, as you can imagine, it was very hectic trying to wait for doctor's phone calls and FaceTime calls when he was on the ventilator to speak to him. Although he was not able to respond, to hear us, and to let him know that everything was okay, while having to juggle our finals and projects and anything else that we had going on in our lives. And as my sister mentioned, while we did have a great support group from our family, friends, and even the Queens College community with our professors and grief counselors that we've been in contact with from the Health and Wellness Center, this is a tragedy that no one can really imagine the magnitude of unless you have experienced it, unless you have tragically lost someone and watched them dying in a hospital bed alone, or you are a COVID long hauler who has experienced how horrific COVID is and was, and the symptoms and everything, and have long term lasting health effects. So we really wanted to come together, and it was my sister's idea to create a COVID support group so we can be that support for other students who are going through it, whether you lost someone or are a long hauler, or just so the campus community understands and knows that there are resources for them.
It's also important to understand that just like us, those who lost someone to COVID spent a year apart. We didn't see our papa in the year that COVID began because we were trying to keep him safe. But no matter how much we tried to keep him safe, this still happened. So we lost a year and then we lost him. So this grief and losing someone to COVID is you can't put into words.
It's something that's in your face constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it makes it worse when you have a lot of people who are in the community who are kind of downgrading your grief by believing that this is something and that doesn't exist. And you know fairly well that it does when you are a long hauler or have lost a loved one the way that we have.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing is with losing someone to COVID, it's 24/7. You see this everywhere you go, you're wearing masks, and another reminder, you turn on the TV, the COVID commercials, the news. So we don't get a break. And not to ever try to downplay anyone else's loss, but this is a 24/7 grieving process that we have to go through and try to shut out the media. And it's very different.
We have been in contact with other organizations that have helped us through our grieving process, such as Queens Remembrance, Faces of COVID Victims, COVID Survivors for Change. And those were the groups that we found while we were going through the grieving process, which happened long after everything happened, after his loss and the funeral and burial and our semester ending was when we really felt the grief. And we decided that, those resources we found we wanted to share with the campus community, and we wanted to create a group. And so my sister came up with the idea to start a COVID support group, and we have reached out to New York Project Hope, who will be helping us facilitate and run a student-led COVID support group on campus for, us to a community just to be with each other. So we'd like to introduce Lanisa Latang and Panky Lamb from New York Project Hope, who are two grief counselors who have been amazing through this process and helping us go through our own grief and helping all of you out there who have experienced the same thing.
Thank you for having us. Project Hope is so excited to be here today to support the students on this journey towards a new beginning. I'm Lanisa. I'm a crisis counselor with New York Project Hope. I've been with the team since May 2021, but by trade, I am a counselor and a therapist, and I enjoy this work. I'm so excited to be here today, and I'll pass the mic over to Pinky.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having us join the group. It's a very meaningful group, an emotional group that we are trying to help and support the college student community. And Danisha and I are very grateful for that opportunity. We are New York Project Hope. We do emotional support, coping skill, and a extra pair of ears for us to hear you guys. What are your thoughts? Your grievings, anything that you help to for that constraint to be released, so you can have a better day, future. Thank you.
Yes.
So we'll pass it to Jessica and Danielle.
So, in partnership with New York Project Hope, we have envisioned a weekly support group for students on campus who, again, may have experienced a loss or who are COVID long haulers.
So I think it's also important that we speak about the COVID long haulers. Just because they did not lose someone to COVID, it is very traumatizing. Some people are put on vents, the stuff they've seen in the hospital, being so close to death. It's a scary experience in itself. So this group is for everyone who had something to do with COVID.
So today's discussion is going to be in regards to grief and coping with grief. We just want to stress that everyone's experience is valid and is important, and your emotions and your voice are valid and important. And we want to extend our condolences to anyone who has lost someone like we have. We also want to express our, just how amazing COVID long haulers are. And I don't say the word amazing lightly. I was trying to think of another word. But the strength and resilience that you have, the stories that we've heard of so many people who have gone through COVID and were near their end and who have pulled through, but now they are suffering mentally and health-wise and everything. And again, this is why we feel it is so imperative to have a group like this on campus, and hopefully other CUNYs follow the same suit to make sure that they support their students who are going through this, and know that you don't have to suffer in silence, that you have a group of people who have gone through the same thing, and we all can really help each other through this grief process. So I'd like to turn it over again to Lanisa Latang and Panky Lamb, who are going to discuss grief and coping.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate you all's story. I think sometimes having a story makes a difference on how we approach things. And I think if we think about everyone through the pandemic, everyone has a story. And through this group, we'll be able to express how we're feeling and how we're dealing with a lot of things, especially grief and loss. When I think about coping through COVID-19, I just think about all of the stresses that come with it. Many of us are facing challenges that can be very stressful, if it's work, if it's school, if it's relationships, familiar relationships or other relationships, friendships. And those all have taken a toll during COVID-19 because the way that we traditionally work, attend school, and engage with people outside of our homes all changed over the last couple of months. And we had to readjust our lives. It can be overwhelming, it can cause strong emotions in everyone. If you think about the little kiddos, you think about the senior citizens, or we think about people who are studying at university or just working adults, we all been impacted. Um, you sometimes might feel isolated, even now. If you think about the way this presentation is being brought to you all, it's virtual. This wasn't a thing before where the whole world operated on Zoom or through virtual platforms, and that's been a change. The way we connect with one another is different, and we had to adjust. One thing I've learned is that people have become resilient. And I've seen the resilience in Jesse and Danny because I got a chance to actually learn this story and understand why this is a passion for them and why they really wanted to formulate this group for students, because they see how it can be beneficial to be able to talk about what's happening when you lose a loved one to COVID-19. And they just wanted an opportunity for students to come together and be able to share their thoughts and feelings and maybe share ways in which they're coping healthy, you know, skills that they've learned that they would like to share, and vice versa, because there may be students who have experienced the same thing and found some healthy ways to cope throughout this process. So today we're going to talk about some of those coping skills, and we're going to also talk about some of the effects that grief has had on people during this time.
Okay. Since Lanisha spoke about the grieving, I wanna just share it to you guys, or maybe refresh what are the stage of grieving. The first one will be denial. The second will be anger. There will be bargaining. Four will be depression, and fifth will be acceptance. All those stages will be the stage of grieving, and just know where you are when this happened, and that at the end you would just accept, and then you be resilient, and you can have your emotions in check. This is why this group is made, so that we can help you through these grieving stages, and then you can ease your emotion and cope with it. The grief. I'm sorry, Anisha, you want to say something?
I was going to just point out some of the feelings that people may be experiencing while they're going through those stages of grief. You may be feeling fear, anger, sadness, worry, numbness, or frustration, changes in your appetite, energy, desires, interests. You may be having a difficult time concentrating, making decisions, difficulty sleeping, or nightmares. You may even be having physical reactions, such as headaches and body pains, stomach problems, and maybe even skin rashes. So I just wanted to bring what some of those feelings may be associated with those stages of grief. Thank
Okay,
you, Pinky.
no problem. So as Lanisha mentioned, all the symptoms about grieving, and then how it's affecting your body and emotionally. I know as a student that it is very stressful going through that, on top of having final exams, building a career, a future, and all of that is just weighing you down emotionally and physically. So here we are, all to help each other to get through this and have a better future. One of the coping skills that we usually tell our clients when they are having those crisis moments will be the breathing exercise. Like, you take 7 seconds to breathe in, and eight seconds to breathe out, and you repeat the cycle for like 4 times. So at the end you will feel more calm, because I know in a moment when you're very stressed, I have final, this is happening, I have to wear a mask, where's the hand sanitizer, like it's just very frustrating, and we just need to take one moment to relax, to breathe, to calm ourselves, and then take on the world again. So this is one of the coping skills that we will be selling a lot to the student or anyone that can use it, so they can just calm down, take a moment, breathe, and then go again. So, Lanisa, what would be the another coping skill?
So I have another one, but I'm thinking, Panky, before I started this presentation today, a little bit of nerves came over me, and taking those deep breaths really helped. And I
Correct.
know that I can't see all of the viewers, but for the people that are visual right now, I think it would be awesome for us to do Panky's breathing exercise together and then just talk about how we feel, and then I'll talk about mine.
Okay. How
Okay?
about it? So let's do it. Okay. Take a deep breath. Exhale. You can close your eyes just to calm yourself more. Take a deep breath. Count to seven. One, two. Exhale as long as you can. And then one more time. Inhale. Exhale. Just the silence and coming down. So I hope this coping skill will help anyone who is having an anxiety attack. Let's say when you before you're taking a test, during an exam, something that they a presentation that they are doing in front of so many people. Just take a deep breath, calm your nerve, and know that you can do it. Just tell yourself you can do it.
I love that. And I feel a little bit calmer right now in the moment. How do you guys feel, Jesse and Danny?
We feel good too. It's
Yeah.
definitely, as we've discussed with each other, we're very open with sharing our story and we want to share our story to help others out there. But even right before we got on as well, we were very nervous.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that definitely helped us be more centered to continue the presentation. So thank you.
Also, I remember like another important thing is one of the things we went through a lot was flashbacks. So when
Mhm.
you're losing someone to COVID, you are seeing your loved one pass away slowly over FaceTimes. So I remember for us that first week, two, I don't even know how long it was. It was such a rush. We had flashbacks and we couldn't sleep at night. And honestly, the breathing helped us a lot because we would go outside, do something like going to the store, and we would catch ourselves just thinking what how we just saw our papa and we're out right now, but papa's in that hospital bed alone. And sometimes we would have to stop ourselves because we would have a lot of guilt that we were together with family and he was alone suffering on that vent. So the breathing really put us in a peaceful place at times.
Yeah, there was actually one time that we were like, let's watch something on Netflix,
And we couldn't.
and we couldn't, and we all just like we just broke down, and we were like, we felt like we were like cheating on him in a way, like we felt very guilty, and we're like, well, he's dying by himself, and we're here watching, a comedy, show, and
We didn't want to feel okay.
yeah,
Because even when we felt the minute of peace, we were guilty. Like how can we let ourselves be peaceful when our loved one is dying alone? But at one point, it came to the point after not eating and sleeping, we were like, okay, we have to hold ourselves together in order to get through this together. So the breathing is really helps.
definitely helps.
Yes. And thank you for sharing how deep breathing was a positive effect, has had a positive effect on you all. Because Pinky spoke about a lot of things for the future, and you guys spoke about a lot of things from the past. Like when you're really in a moment and you're grieving, and those stages are really prevalent, like in your everyday life, taking a deep breath sometimes and taking a step back is literally all you can do sometimes. So hearing that has had a positive effect on like your coping and getting through this process just shows like taking back that control of one thing, even if it's just your breath, can really slow you down to help you get through that next moment. And then that moment turns into the next 5 minutes, which can eventually gradually turn into an hour. And then you'll start seeing hours turn into days where you're able to breathe and focus on the task that you have at hand and see your way through. This isn't an easy process, and it's no one way to get through it, but we've seen that these are some of the steps that you can take to help you get to those steps. So thank you for sharing. So when I think about COVID-19 and some of the coping skills that I've experienced, I would say that some of them aren't as healthy. And I think it would be only be right if we talk about some of them unhealthy coping skills so that way we can probably find some solutions or alternatives. Some people talk about freshman 15 when you dorm. Well, COVID put on 30 for people. A lot of people gained weight because there was a lot of emotional eating. People were gym rats or constantly in the gym, and they were unable to get the physical activity that they usually do. So some people gain weight because of poor appetite and diet, and then also lack of exercise. And I can say that maybe that was me.
Yeah.
How do we turn that negative into a positive? The weather isn't so cold right now. We can take some walks. Moving your body is very important. On here we have meditation, which aligns with the deep breathing. If you meditate and do some yoga, some stretches, those are things that really help. Pinky, you was going to say something? Oh, okay. Yeah, those are exercises that really help to help clear your mind and align the mind, the body, and everything that's going on with you together. So we want to think about exercise. We also want to think about how we're eating. We want to incorporate fruits and veggies and drinking water. We want to sell the water out of the stores. I want everyone drinking so much water that they have to find water somewhere else to ship to New York City because people need to drink water. We need to eat appropriately because that's going to help us feel better. So that way we can push through. I also think about other things that I can do, like taking a break from the normal. I went from working in the field or being outside or in the office to being remote and being in a home. So finding a time where you can take a break and say, okay, I'm going to separate schoolwork and everything on my mind and just take a moment for me. Even if it's in the shower, you take we don't want to waste water, but if we take a 5 minute shower a little bit longer, just to clear our minds and to feel a little bit at peace, I think it might be worth it because that's another step that can take you to get to the next day. So taking breaks, maybe we want to get back to reading. We might want to do something that we enjoy, make a phone call to someone that we enjoy talking to that doesn't bring additional stress. Maybe watch a television show that has some humor in it. We want to try listening to a podcast, something that makes us feel good. If it's about horror stories or health and wellness, whatever it feels good to you, I think it may be worth it. We also want to be mindful of what we're taking in. So during COVID, some people had the news on consistently, constantly getting updates about the death total and the negative impacts that the pandemic is having on people's lives. So some people needed to shut that out so that way all of that negative uh, or current news that was happening wasn't negatively affecting them. So be mindful of what you're taking in. If you feel at any time that you're taking in something that's negatively impacting your mental health, especially around COVID, we want to take a break from it. We can't not watch news because we need to know what's going on, but maybe not 24 hours of the day.
I
That
think
brings me to the time of day. We want to prioritize rest. We want to make sure that you guys are getting quality sleep. I know college students, you guys are used to ripping and running, working these jobs, going out, being social, studying, finding time for family. Find time for sleep, okay? But if y'all don't remember anything else, prioritize your rest is very important and drink water. So yeah, we want to basically take care of your body and the mental space. You want to make sure that you have the mental capacity to finish and complete work assignments and be able to be present for yourself.
Correct.
yeah,
Thank
I
you so
just
much, Lanisha. I just want to add one more thing. For me, when I was very stressed, I like to have a me time. It would be a take a walk in the park or listening some comforting music or blast it just so you can hear the music and nothing else, so you can be blank. So Jessica and Daniel, I'm sorry. Um, what are the coping skills that you guys did during, maybe COVID, uh, or during your exams? It's like, finals, they're always very stressful. But what are those coping skills that you can also add up with exams and then in this pandemic. Would you like to share with us, please?
So I was never really one to plan, but I realized that with COVID and with dealing with the grief and being in school, and school is very important to us, I had to plan. So I had to take that planner out. And, we had a lot of work to catch up on because there were some days we couldn't get to that work because we had to have that me time. But we were able to talk and we agreed, let's plan the days we're going to do work. And it can't be a whole day thing. You have to break things up because as college students, some of us, myself included, I work best at night and I like to break night, do all my work, my papers. But I realized that wasn't healthy because I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating right. I had to plan ahead my days.
I think it's very important when you're planning ahead your days, that you pencil in that me time. So every semester, what I usually do is I look at my schedule, the days that I have classes and everything, and then from there I'm like, okay, what days do I need for myself? And then everything comes after, because especially in today's society, as progressive as we are, mental health, there is still a big stigma around it, and it's not spoken about and not valued as much as it should be. And if your mental health isn't there and you're not eating and you're not sleeping, um, you can't do anything. You can't function. So that's something that we both agreed on that we were doing. And the other thing was being social. We were grateful that we have friends and actually childhood friends that we haven't seen and spoke to in a long time, who were constantly checking in on us and who were like, okay, we need to go out. Like, even for a walk, let's just go for a walk. Do you want to grab a bite? Have you eaten? Because like my sister mentioned, we didn't really eat those 3 weeks and we barely slept those 3 weeks that we were going through it. And my birthday was actually in May. It was the first birthday of the family, and I did not want to do anything.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I did not want to celebrate. I did not want to hear about my birthday. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't even want to be around anyone. And I actually, went to my sister and I was like, I really need help. I really need people. Like, such a depression that I was trying to fight my way out of it by pushing everyone away. But that was the time that I needed people the most. So definitely, especially in this time with COVID, it has hindered our ability to make those connections and make new friendships, or keep up with those old ones. So it's definitely important to schedule, eat and sleep and take care of yourself, not only physically but mentally, but also make sure that you're reaching out when you really need help, and keeping those connections with family and with friends, and like Lanisa said, people who make you feel good. We're grateful that we have very close friends who we consider sisters, who have been with us every step of the way and who have helped us along in this journey.
But I think it's also important to mention, we didn't even mention it before, that there's a fear of COVID. Like, we saw this happen to the strongest person we know. And we have PTSD sometimes. Like, we want to go out and we will go out. Sometimes we have to push ourselves to go out. If we're in a safe environment, we know that we're with people who keep themselves safe as well. Vaccinated, we can go. But sometimes it's scary because we're so traumatized. We're scared to bring something home. We're scared to, God forbid, get sick. And we saw what that was at such a time that we thought we were at the finish line. It was a new year. So it's so scary to feel calm when we just don't know what could happen.
Especially in the fields that we're in. We're both education majors. I'm currently a substitute in a school, and Danielle currently works for a surgeon. So she's around patients all the time. I'm around children and adults who can pass it to each other. So along with that PTSD, it's been very challenging because you have that grief, and then with that grief comes, the what ifs, because you experienced it. So it's like, and we're young. So it's kind of like that do we kind of start adapting to this new way of life and continue living, but also we're living in fear because we watched everything happen so quickly to someone who was very careful, and as we are. So, how do you find that balance in life?
Okay.
I love that. And I think that balance is something that comes over time, right? And I think we find new meaning throughout this experience. Um, the way we did things before, we can't do it exactly that way now. So we take these experiences and we apply them to our arsenal, and then we figure out how we can be better people, how we can organize our time, how we can prioritize our needs, and making sure that we accomplish our goals. So I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Mm. You're welcome. Thank you. So one thing that I want to focus is that to have a future, you need a healthy body to go to meet that goal. So right now, we're focusing on the mental health. How is this group gonna help people emotion and support emotionally, and that and other topics that can come. Maybe Jessica and Danielle has other topics that we can discuss in this group meeting, and other people have also questions, things that we're really open to it. You can ask us, ask anyone, just share any opinion, share, because stage of grieving depending on their culture. Because as you can see, I'm Asian. Our grieving part of in my Asian culture is like we all come together and have a meal, but because COVID, we cannot do it, so we just have it on a different way. But that's how we cope. We just share a meal. We honor that person that passed away. A moment of silence. We share this meal with them. Our prayers, because in Buddhism also do prayer. We have a 7 days that we do not eat meat, only vegetable. I'm not is that vegetarian? Yes, more like a vegetarian because they can still eat egg that is not fertilized. So it's a 7 day of honoring the person that passed away. Our gratitude, or thank you, and just for that 7 day we gave up something. I'm not sure if you Lanisha have heard of these grievings on different cultures. Do you
I
have any?
haven't, and that's one thing I think will be a benefit from this group. There's so many ways in which people grieve, and there's so many ways in which people cope. We talked about the basics, right? Like the go-to, the deep breathing and the meditation. But when we think about culture and experiences, that opens us up to a whole nother conversation. And I think that will be the benefit of this group. So one part is today we'll be having what is Project Hope, Danny and Jesse's experience on why this group was formulated, but also just to let the campus know that this is just the start. And through over the next well, I guess over the next couple of weeks we'll be meeting, and we'll be able to talk about other ways in which we can use coping skills, ways in which Project Hope can be a benefit to the campus, and to the students, and how we can help support those who have been through this experience with losing a loved one or have been through COVID-19 themselves, and any resources you may need. Sometimes just listening and being present makes a difference in your day. Like, oh, I didn't even know that this was happening to other people. I thought I was alone. And we're here to say, no, there's a group of people that have been through this, want to support you, and want support for themselves. And I think, that's going to be the best thing to learn about culture and how everyone has experienced um, this pandemic and how we've gotten through it. Because maybe grieving and celebrating that life with where you guys don't eat meat, and those 7 days is just giving thanks for that life. I think that's a wonderful tradition, and why wouldn't we do that, especially when we can't get together, and have those traditional ways in which we grieve. But I would have never known that if we weren't having this group today. um in my family, we do something similar. We'll get together when someone passes, and everyone that has a tie to the person who has passed will wear white. Traditionally everyone wears black, but the family, so like when my grandmother passed, everyone wore white. Her grandchildren, her children, nieces, and nephews. So that might be a tradition that we have.
Okay,
Hmm.
interesting. I didn't know that. I learned something new again. How people cope.
Hmm.
Right. So I'm I'm sorry. I lost my word already. I was like, wait. Okay. So I
So we're
hope this
super.
group. I'm sorry.
Hmm. No, I was just gonna add that we are super excited about some of the other topics that we're gonna talk about throughout this group, and maybe Danny and Jesse can talk about a little bit more about like what their hope is and what they would like to see. And we talked about the purpose, and they did a wonderful job talking about how we got to this point. But I think it might be beneficial for whoever's watching, for whatever students are hearing this, to know what to expect over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so our hope and what we envisioned of this group is that we have a support community of students who can lean on one another and share experiences and um, share coping skills and anything else. Like I mentioned before, the COVID-19 pandemic has really hindered our ability to create connections, make friendships, keep friendships at times. And we really felt that it was important that we have this group of students who acknowledge each other's experiences and the things that they went through and have those shared experiences to say, hey, you're not alone. Your feelings, again, and experiences are valid. And how can we come out of this together, right? If you have gone through grief before, or if this is your first time going through grief, there's some understanding that you can't go through it alone, right?
Yes.
You need and have resources and those people around you to lift you up and kind of hold your hand and walk through it with you. And it's why my sister came up with this idea. So we're trying to turn our grief, which is constant and is still very present and still very strong as the day that we had to let him go, and we want to walk alongside other students at QC who are going through this, or to often, also provide those resources for students who, thank God, thus far have not gone through what we have gone through. But God forbid they have, or will experience this in the future, to be like, hey, it's okay. We went through it. We'll get through it together. Here are all the resources that you need to know. And, you're not alone.
And we felt like, what better place to do this than at our college? And Queens College means so much to us. Like, school is so important to us, which is why it did make our grieving a bit harder, because we were both refused to, drop any classes. That was not an option. We had to keep going. School, it's sad to say, but it was first. We wanted to deal with our assignments that we caught up on, and then we dealt with the grieving. But that is something that only college students will understand, is school is a constant in our life. So it's important that we have a place that, even planning, we can all learn to plan together. And I've never been a planner ever. So trust me, if I realize that this is helpful, I know it's going to help other people.
Mm-hmm. So we decided that we would like to have this support group during free hour so as many students can participate, but also having those resources available to students. Like I mentioned, we started our grieving process by coming across Facebook groups of organizations who have started in light of COVID, such as COVID Survivors for Change, Faces of COVID Victims. So we want to bring those additional resources to students at QC so they know that there are ways and memorials and different events that you can be part of to honor your loved one, and to be part of change in a community. So we're winding down on this presentation. But we really hope that everybody who is watching right now, or anybody who will be watching later on, really understand that your experience is very important. And, you don't have to go through this alone. And we have our experience, and we know what grief feels like. We know what it feels like to watch your loved one slowly slipping away when you can't be there with them. And we really want to make sure that nobody feels alone or confused like we did during that time, trying to figure out school and everything else going on in our lives.
Wow, that was so beautifully said. And I think having this emotional support group for students because of COVID-19, the design that you guys have come up with, all the hard work that has come into creating this platform and making sure that this group has some type of life. You guys deserve a pat on the back. And me and Pinky will be here to support y'all through this whole experience. Um, a list of the groups and the titles and what we'll be talking about weekly will be sent out to the student body. So everyone will be able to join groups that, they may feel connected to, and we'll have a great time over the next couple of weeks with our creativity and making sure that we're talking about things that's relevant to the student body. Um, Before we go, I would like to say that Project Hope provides individual services for people who are dealing with the effects of COVID-19. If you feel like you need someone to talk to, you can reach out to us, and a counselor will be provided to you to help support you through this. And we provide, like Kayla said earlier, information, education, and support. So, if it's a physical thing that you may need, crisis counselors are there to help. If you just need someone to speak to prior to the group formation or the next time we meet, you can reach out to the number and we'll make sure, someone is assigned to you. I'm going to say the number right now that you should reach out to, and we'll make sure that the flyer is sent out, and everyone has a way in which they can get in contact with Project Hope. But the phone number that you need to call if you would like some immediate assistance is 718-722-6001. And you can give a call to the number and we'll make sure everyone has the flyer. I would like to personally thank everyone who was listening or will hear this presentation. Thank you. That
Thank
was
you for having
perfect.
us. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank you
you.
for having us.
Thank you. And thank you, New York Project Hope and the Queens College Administration, for supporting Danielle and I through this journey and through the creation of this support group and the creation of this community for those on campus. So thank you. And thank you to those of you who are watching.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So we
Thank
hope.
you.